Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome to another official track of gameplay in MX Simulator round number 11 of the Nationals. It's Budds Creek in Maryland, and a special track to me as it is the site of my one and only, my lone, miserable little puny moto victory in my career of MX Simulator racing. I won the first 450 moto at the RF Pro race here in 2014, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, I just want to welcome you guys again to another lovely video. Sorry it's been so hit or miss with me lately doing videos, but yeah, it's been super busy, still in the midst of the job hunt, and I'll be heading to Pennsylvania this weekend to see one of my friends get married, so I've been busy getting with get my travel booked and all that business, but I'm hoping to get back on track once it all settles down after the summer. I think it'll be okay. So sorry for the lack of videos, but here is another video on Budds Creek, as mentioned, and as usual, it'll be a nice little couple laps, talk about the track, talk about my history on the track, I guess, and then break it into some real-life moto. I will apologize in advance for the fact that there's probably some background noise going on. My washer dryer is very loud in my apartment, and I can't really do anything about that because I need to have these clothes washed to go to Pennsylvania this weekend. So I'm making a video despite the fact the audio may not be perfect. Alright, Budds Creek. I like this track in Sim. I like this year's version of the track in Sim, which was again created by, I think Barrington was the prime guy when it came to displacement this week. But, the Race Factory Gaming track crew always coming together, putting good stuff and hot tickets down onto the track, and they've been trying to work on also doing the smooth track for the road races, which we are not doing for Nationals yet. Like, it's not like... this is the track that will be raced for the Race Factory Gaming Nationals. However, they do release like a smooth version so people can race with the smooth version online and use online e-road, which at some point I promise I'm going to make a video talking about and playing and all that stuff, because I think it's pretty freaking cool, and I'm kind of mad I haven't made a video on it yet, but that's just how little time I've had to do anything. So we're going to get down to business, I promise, but just for this track right now, I think that it's pretty well laid out. People seem to think the track is pretty good this year. The way that the Race Factory guys came up with laying down the ruts and stuff like that, I think it's pretty good. I'm obviously not riding it fantastic, but I have very limited time on the track, to be fair, so I'm gonna do with it what I can. But yeah, the reviews seem pretty positive about this track, which I'm kind of stoked to see, because usually when a track is received well by the community, it means it's going to be raced pretty well, because most people will be relatively comfortable with the track, whereas when people mostly hate the track, there's only a few guys that end up being really good on the track, and then the rest are all just floundering around. So I'm looking forward to like streaming this race, which will be on Thursday, tonight I guess, since you'll see this on Thursday. Same time, same places they've always been all year long, on twitch.tv/startyoursystemstv. But again, Budds Creek, it's typical. I mean, the track layout hasn't changed in, boy, a while, maybe 7-8 years since they made any really kind of noticeable change to it, and even that was only like changing up a few corners. They changed the start one year to go backwards. It hasn't gone backwards in a while as well, so yeah, pretty typical. And as with the typical track, like I said, I know this track pretty well. I've raced it pro in Sim 1, 2, 3 times, I think, in the midst of my career. Did not race it in 2015. I did race it in No, I didn't. I've only raced this track twice. The last time I raced Budds Creek professionally, I won a moto. I'm still stoked about that. I mean, anybody who's ever played Sim knows how freaking hard this game is, and to play it on the professional side with the, Race Factory Gaming series or the EMF series or anything like that, no, it's way harder to win an event. And I will admit that I think that the 250 class is a little easier to win, so I'm probably being a little biased here. But winning that 450 moto, the only one that I've ever won in this game, was freaking so nerve-wracking. is during the season that Alexis Leclerc was champion. He got a bad start. Zach Dupuis, the reigning champion, also got kind of a bad start. It helped a lot that I started up front. I didn't get credited with the whole shot, although I came through the first corner first. But I think the whole shot went to Jack Patterson, and thank heavens he crashed his way out of the front pretty quickly because Aussie lag is brutal to deal with. And then I went back and forth for a little bit with the lead. I don't think I had it the whole race, but someone was in there. May have been, trying to think who it could have been. Maybe Cody Penwell, because I remember Penwell won the overall going 2-7, so maybe Penwell was in there. And then I got the lead about the 10-minute mark, pulled out to a pretty good lead, and then I knew Leclerc, Dupuis, I think Mullins was racing then but hadn't won a championship yet, or really wasn't the guy that he is now. I knew that they were coming, but I just put my head down and was like, I'm going to win this thing. And didn't think about it, didn't think about who's coming. I actually didn't fall in, at all until the last lap, and then I had a tip over and fell off the bike, and then I started freaking out. Like, I still had 20 seconds behind me, but I was like, oh, here we go, I'm imploding, my hand's going crazy. But yeah, I was able to win, and I'm going to talk about that as many times as I possibly can, because that is pretty much one of the best moments I ever had in sim. Able to win a freaking 450 RF National Moto, and followed it up with a cheeky little 13th for 6th overall. I mean, that's how just pretty much crap luck into it I got. I mean, I did start dead last the second moto, so I got almost a whole shot the first moto, and then came across the line in the second moto in 39th after the first lap. So I got to 13th for what it's worth from 39th, but I was pretty mad. I really felt like that I could have easily gotten a 6th or better in that second moto, and a 2-7 won the overall, so I wasn't the most stoked after that day, even though I won the moto. But looking back on it now, I'm happy that it happened, and yeah. So that's my little Budds Creek story. I've probably told that 3 or 4 times on the channel, but it never hurts to say it again, right? I mean, I'm proud of the achievement, even though it's a video game. So yeah, let's talk about real life moto. Yeah, the first and foremost thing that happened at Unadilla last weekend, obviously, we waited so patiently, of course. Just everybody was chill with not discussing this at all. Nobody wanted to know, and nobody really cared what happened. Obviously, I'm lying so much because the Team USA Motocross the Nations team was selected right before Unadilla. The motos were about to start, and as usual, right before the first 250 moto on Gravity Cavity, they announced the team, which will be MX1/MXGP class Cole Seeley, MX2 Zach Osborne, and Open class Thomas Covington. Now, a lot of American fans, as I can pretty clearly see, who don't follow the sport that much, were like, oh, what? Who's Covington? Oh, never heard of him. Cry bloody murdered. Well, any of you American fans that don't follow the GPs, Thomas Covington is the top American in the GPs right now, although he rides in the MX2 division, not the MXGP class. He is, I want to say, 5th in the championship, in the MX2 championship, and has won an overall this year at one point, I believe. I think he's won 3 or 4 GPs in his career now. He is number 64 for Ice One Racing Rockstar Husqvarna, which is the factory Husqvarna team in Europe. And he's good. Like, he is, don't write him off as like, oh, we had to drop down and get a crappy GP rider. Like, he is, if he came over to the States and raced in the 250 class, I could easily see him being not like a, I don't know if I would count him as like a winning threat, but definitely like get a good start, and he could mix it up. I don't know about winning, but top 5. I could see Thomas Covington coming to the States on a 250 and getting a top 5. That being said, I do know that, you know, some people were like, well, why not pick J-Mart, put him on a 450, or why not pick like Savachi or AC and put Osborne on a 450? Like, what the heck? And I'm not going to get too deep into that. I mean, there's many reasons why, but I know that Jeremy Martin was asked if he would ride a 450, and Honda actually turned that down because they said they only have it in the budget to send one rider, aka Cole Seeley, who was already picked by that point to represent in the MX1 class. So Anybody out there thinking, hey, Jmar, why not? That's why. And Tomac, we've already been through that. He said he didn't want to go. Cooper Webb also said he did not want to go. I know that Blake Baggett and Jason Anderson are Baggett is getting surgery after the season is over, and Anderson has already gotten season-ending surgery. So both of them were a no-go. It then falls into the, well, what about Justin Barsha? What about Weston Pike kind of realm? And yeah, I mean, Barsha would have been, I think, a decent pick, but I know that his contract is up with JGR this year, and no real intention to re-sign him from what I understand from JGR, although he might get re-signed. I don't know, but it also is a big ask for the team to give him a bike and pay for his expenses and do all of this extra work for the possibility of him pretty much making his last appearance on the team at Disnations, because his contract expires October 1st and the Disnations race is on October 2nd, I believe. So he'd pretty much have to sign like a one-day contract. We've been over this. Like, just watch my video where I asked about who should be picked for the team, and I got pretty close. I said I would go with Seeley, Osborne, and Webb, although I said Webb should be in the MX1 class. And I knew that Webb had said, I'm not really thinking about wanting to go, and I've had a bad year and stuff like that, but I still believe that DeCoster should have started with Webb and said, like, hey, redemption time. Like, you feel bad about last year, we'll make up for it right now. You're going to have the 18 Yamaha by then. You'll be able to test. You're a tough kid. You represent your country. But from what I understand, Webb said, nope, just didn't want to go. So that's a pretty good team. Whether or not it's gonna be a winning team, I have my doubts. I hope, and I will be cheering hard, of course. But France looks good. They've got Gauthier Paulin, Roman Fevre, and Dylan Ferrandis, which is a pretty damn hard team to beat. They had Benoit Patrel in Dylan Ferrandis' place last year and won, and I would argue that Ferrandis is better than Patrel. So it's almost like the team is stronger this year. Paulin looks a lot better and gelling more with that Husky this year anyway. So I think he's gonna do better with that new team under him. And Fevre is starting to slowly get his groove going in GPs, and Ferrandis, as we all know, is pretty much like one of the top 5 best 250 riders in the world right now. As he's I think he's 4th, or he might be 3rd in points now. Now that Amart's been out for a while in the AMA series, and realistically, the AMA series, at least in my opinion, is a little bit better than the GP's 250 class this year. I think that you put Pauls Jonas, Jeremy Seawer, Benoit Patrel on up against these 250 guys that we have here, and they would top 10. I think, you know, it would be pretty likely that they could finish inside of the top 10, but they would struggle for sure. So that's just my opinion. Anyway, enough of the Disnations talk. Let's talk a little bit about Unadilla. 450s was predictably unpredictable in the fact that I thought Marvin would go 1-1 this weekend again at Unadilla, for example, and he did, and that's awesome, but I didn't expect it to happen the way it did. He looked great in the first moto, pulled away, got a big lead, cruised, etc., etc. And then it pours rain. The second moto comes around, and it's a complete mutter, and he hole shots, and that really did help him get away. And he had Davalos giving chase for a little bit, but nobody that really was gonna, at least in my opinion, win that moto besides Marvin started up front with him. So he did get a chance to get away in that second moto, but still nonetheless 1-1, his 3rd in a row. He's now won 6 motos on the season. He's only 1 moto win behind Eli Tomac, who has 8 moto wins. Marvin has 7 now, and Marvin has now equaled Tomac for overall wins at 4. So they're pretty dead even when it comes to all that. The problem is that Marvin has had a few too many DNFs in there. One for a front brake issue at Muddy Creek when his meniscus was all screwed up anyway, so he probably didn't want to push through that with no, having to put all the pressure on his rear brake with his bad leg. So that's understandable. But then the huge crash that he had at Southwick while running second is really costing him at this point, because if he had just finished second in that moto at Southwick, suddenly he would be within about 8 points of Tomac. Instead, he is 31 points back. He's still 3rd behind Baggett, who's 27 back, but yeah, Marvin looks like the guy who's probably going to move into second before this series is over. And if there is any chance in the almighty world that someone catches Tomac before the season is over, I think it rests in Musquin's hands at this point. He has all the momentum if he goes 1-1 at Budds Creek again, and Tomac has another kind of weird weekend like he did at Unadilla, then, you know, this is going to be really interesting going into Ironman. We got 2 rounds left to go, 31-point lead, 100 points on the table. It looks like a shoe-in for Tomac, and I would put a lot of money on Tomac still to win this thing. But Tomac going 10-5 at Unadilla kind of raises some question marks. You know, I listened to an interview that he did with Steve Mathis and that they wrote about on RacerX.com about him running out of tear-offs or pulling all of his tear-offs or something like that in the first moto, so he couldn't see, and then the rain started falling and he went backwards a few spots. But he was already in like 8th anyway when he started going backwards, and he ended up 10th. And then the second moto got a decent start and just stayed where he was. He didn't go forward, didn't go backwards. He said it was basically survival, but still, I mean, a 10-5 with the championship lead is kind of like, woof, that's a big blow. And Marvin was able to chunk back 23 points this weekend alone. So, not that I'm suggesting at all that Tomac is going to have another weekend like that at Budds Creek, but it does make you think just a little bit, like, wow, you know, this still has the potential to get kind of crazy here coming down the stretch. It has more potential, at least in my opinion, to be like Tomac comes out of Budds Creek this weekend, maybe wins a moto, maybe wins both motos, but at least gets on the podium quite easily, and then goes into Indiana with pretty much just having to get like a 5th overall or something to easily clinch, and then it's like, oh yeah, well, Tomac can pretty easily walk this thing home from there, and this, that, and the other thing. So just my kind of general thoughts on that is I think Tomac's got this, but like I said, you do have to kind of think about the what ifs in this scenario of, you know, what if Tomac does have another bad week at Budds Creek? Like, even at Unadilla, he qualified 9th, and that was very uncharacteristic Tomac, I feel, where normally he's the kind of guy that can run a burner lap when called upon to get a good gate pick and stuff like that. So 9th fastest, and then ended up going 10-5. Just kind of a weird day in general at Unadilla for him, I guess. So could be interesting, that's for sure. Either way, it's kind of exciting to see Marvin pull this thing together a little bit. He has stated that he will need season-ending surgery after the season is over to repair that meniscus and will not be racing for Team France. Otherwise, obviously, France would have loved to probably pick Marvin, although the French Federation is usually kind of weird and seems to like sticking to their GP guys. But I mean, I don't know what you do. Like, Fevre is probably the weakest link of that French team, which is crazy to think because he's been the team leader the past couple of times that they've won the Motocross the Nations. And quite honestly, a team of Paulin, Musquin, and Ferrandis would be unbeatable. Like, you would have to send Tomac, Anderson or Baggett, and Osborne to beat Musquin, Paulin, and Ferrandis. Like, in Great Britain, which is pretty close to France. Like, all those guys have raced there before. Osborne and Covington have raced in Great Britain before, but I don't believe Tomac ever has. So, like, obviously that'd be new turf for him. And I don't think that Anderson has either. So, like, if you were able to pick the optimal team, which would be like Tomac, Anderson, Osborne, probably, maybe Tomac, Baggett, Osborne, it's still kind of an up-in-the-air kind of deal, at least in my opinion, if Marvin was going into that healthy. It's a little bit of a question mark given that Fevre's been off his game a little bit this year. But again, this is all just speculation. I'm going to talk about the Motocross the Nations in another video. Like, I'm already mad I'm talking about it too much here, but I just decided to bring it up because Marvin is not going to be on the French team, so that's a little bit kind of odd, obviously, given that Marvin's been like slaying it these last few weeks, and you would be like, oh, what about Marvin? Why isn't he on the team or something? But got to repair the meniscus, he says, so a little bit of unfortunate scenario there for him. Talking about the 250s, though, coming into Budds Creek, it is looking quite likely that Zach Osborne is going to clinch this weekend. He is 71 points up on J Mart, somewhere in that range, and he needs to be 50 points up or greater leaving Budds Creek. So theoretically speaking, if he wins the first moto, and if it is 71 points, but I could be wrong, but let's just say it is 71 points the gap to J Mart. If Osborne goes out, wins the first moto, and J Mart finishes third or worst, it's over. He is the champion right there. 3 motos left to go, and he's already the champion. So odds are in his favor to wrap this thing up. Obviously, he hasn't won the last few weeks. This past weekend was J Mart winning, going 2-1, and he looked kind of like his former self a little bit. He was pretty good in Moto 1, couldn't quite get to Savachi and match his speed, but he still was running a pretty good click. And then Moto 2, the Mutter, he gets a whole shot and goes out and kind of puts a clinic on those guys and wins no problem. So J Mart able to keep it alive for the time being, but I think even he would tell you that, I mean, this thing is pretty much over unless disaster for Osborne in some sense, which could happen, but I don't think it will. I think Osborne's going to go out and clinch this thing this weekend. I think it'll be until the second moto, because I think he is in kind of conservative mode now, like knows that if he can just put a couple thirds together, that's plenty good, and wants to get this thing wrapped up so he can be happy about it, focus attention to Motocross the Nations, which he's super stoked on going, and all that good business. So I look for Osborne wrapping it up this weekend. I honestly look for either Savachi or AC maybe winning it this weekend. AC got snubbed at Washougal, probably could have won that overall, but got tired late in that second moto. Was leading early at Unadilla, washed the front end, had a mediocre second moto. Like, Cianciarulo is about as close as you can get to winning an overall at one of these events without actually winning it. And Savachi's looked pretty strong these last couple weeks. It's just been starts that have been hurting him in like the first or second moto, whichever one he gets a bad start in. But when he starts near the front, he usually has been winning or finishing second or right in there since he got those chassis upgrades that he talked about on the Pulp MX show. So yeah, I think it's going to be one of those guys. I think Osborne is going to clinch. I don't expect J Mart to win again. Maybe he steps it up thinking, I got to keep this championship alive. I'm going to try to go 1-1 and rides over his head and maybe holds it together for a win. But I would pick a Kawasaki to end up on top of the podium this weekend. And 450 class, just jumping back into that again real quick. I, again, am going to go with Marvin just because he has so much momentum on his side right now and has nothing to lose. He's going to be done with this season at the last national anyway. It doesn't sound like he's going to be making Monster Cup unless his meniscus heals really quick. So I think he's just in full send at this point, comfortable on the bike, knee doesn't hurt too bad, and trying to get it as close as he can get it before it's completely over. So I still have Marvin winning this weekend. Maybe Tomac tries to wrangle this thing back in his favor just a little bit so that maybe he goes out and wins or something like that. I mean, theoretically, Tomac could clinch this weekend if Baggett has a DNF moto or something like that, and Marvin has a couple bad motos and Tomac goes 1-1, Tomac clinches. So it's not completely out of the question that Tomac puts it together super nicely this weekend and somehow walks away with the title a round early. I've seen crazier things happen before in pro motocross where it doesn't look like anything's going to change and we're going into the final round with real close points and stuff like that, and then suddenly someone's hurt and someone's wrapping up the title long before you would have thought. So we'll see. I got Marvin. I got Savachi or AC this weekend. Obviously, would always love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions and all that brouhaha and giddy up. One thing I would like to talk about before this is over is how this is slowly becoming a little bit of a hypocritical scenario, at least from my vantage point. No disrespect to Tomac, he has been fantastic all year long. Maybe he deserved to win the Supercross title, but you got to get as many points as you can, and obviously he did not. But everybody was absolutely crapping all over Dungey for only winning technically I would say 2 Supercross races all year long, and playing the safe game most of the year to try to salvage points when he had a huge lead after Kenny went out and really could play the safe game and just hope for a win here or there. And that appears, at least to me in some sense, to be kind of what Tomac is doing. Yes, he was giving Marvin some of the business at Washougal, but you could tell at a certain point he was just like, Marv's not pertinent to the championship. I don't need to go get him. I'm just going to kind of sail this thing in for second, which Dungey did over and over and over again in Supercross, and everyone was like, oh, you know, he sucks. Oh, Dungey, stupid, consistent, fastest guy should be the champion, blah, blah, blah. Well, think about this for just a second. If Marvin wins out from here, he'll have won 11 motos of 24, which is most of the races. Not quite half, but, you know, more races than almost not having won. He'll have won 6 overalls to Eli's 4, and he'll also have 4 more moto wins than Tomac, or 3 or something like that. So again, we're looking at a scenario where people are all should be saying, wins should pay out more, this, that, and the other thing. But like, everybody craps all over, you know, Muscan for moving out of the way and letting Dungey by, which didn't matter in the championship and Supercross. And nobody seems to remember, hey, yeah, Tomac had those front brake issues. Hey, yeah, Tomac kind of self-imploded and crashed all by himself in New Jersey. Oh, hey, yeah, look at all these other problems, arm pump and stuff that Tomac had in Supercross. And it's like, you erase all of those problems, and Tomac wins that Supercross championship, no problem. If he didn't have the arm pump issues at the beginning of the year and finishes on the podium a few times, wins the championship, no problem. If he didn't have that mental collapse at New Jersey and crash by himself and take forever to get up and all that stuff like that, probably wins the championship, no problem, because he would probably finish like 4th that race, and that would have been plenty of points. Yeah, you can't really count on the front brake issues not biting him, but you know, just if the Kawasaki guys were a little bit more on top of that issue in Dallas, wins the championship, no problem. He didn't lose the championship by that much, and we may look at a scenario where Marvin loses his championship by 10, 8 points, whatever, and you look back. I don't look back at Marvin, or, you know, Marvin being the fastest guy and, oh, he should have won, and Tomac taking his time, and I look back at the scenarios where Marvin was in second, riding over his head at Southwick, had a big crash, scared himself, decided not to finish the moto. The bike was decent, and he just got up and kind of rode off the track. The issue with his front brake at Muddy Creek, yes, his meniscus hurt, but, like, you know, those are situations where champions win on their bad days, and Tomac is making the best of what are quote-unquote his bad days outdoors, and that's what Dungey did indoors. And I keep going back to this because I am so blown away by how many people are just willing to like bend over and blow Eli Tomac for being, you know, just kind of the normal steady guy that he should be outdoors right now, when everyone was like, Dungey is an absolute, so many variations of the word, you know, vagina, for lack of a better word, because so many people were using so many bad words against Dungey, and nobody's saying anything bad about Tomac. Like, the only thing I've seen is, oh yeah, Marvin's killing him, and some people go, no, Eli Tomac's like laying up and, you know, resting, and that's fine, whatever, he can do that, but like, just irks me just a little bit, just a tad much, how these fans are so like one-sided to a scenario. I look at it evenly. Like, Dungey did a fantastic job in Supercross managing that championship, and I was kind of with him in the belief that Eli Tomac was going to have another bad race before the season was over. And after Salt Lake City, when Tomac won, I was like, you know what? Maybe he doesn't. Maybe this is just some sort of like brand new Eli Tomac that can just win every weekend, no problem, and no one's in his way, and he's got it. And then he crashes at New Jersey, and I'm like, shouldn't have changed my mind. I felt like that was going to happen, and that's exactly what Dungey banked on. And I feel like that's kind of what Tomac is in a scenario with now, where it's like, yeah, Marvin's going to win here from here on out or whatever, but if I just cruise into a couple seconds, big freaking deal, you know? Like, that's how you win championships, and I'm all for that. Like, if you are out here trying to win a championship, trying to make Kawasaki look good, that's what you have to do. I am 100% on board with everything Eli Tomac is doing in this championship, whether he's trying to, you know, settle into a pace and go conservative for a championship, because Imagine if he did ride way over his head in that first moto when he couldn't see at Unadilla, and then ends up crashing. Like, then everyone will jump on the, oh, Eli cracks under the pressure bandwagon. But I would have just been like, well, what's he doing pushing the envelope in the first place? He has a huge championship lead. Whereas, like, if Dungey had pushed way over his head indoors and crashed, then everyone would have been like, yeah, Dungey, oh, he sucks anyway, Tomac rocks, yeah, bro. It's like, don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, I look at both scenarios pretty much the same, I guess, and it'll be interesting to see. If Marvin wins out from here, like, you could pretty easily make an argument that maybe he was the best guy this year, because right now they're almost even on every stat. Like, other than points, they have very similar win results. They have very similar overalls. Their seconds and thirds and stuff, they've all been kind of in the same spot. It's just those couple DNFs that have really hurt Marv, you know. So just kind of an interesting point that I came across. At this point, you know, Tomac has a big enough lead that I personally feel like he's the best rider still out there and should win this championship and probably will win this championship. But I just had to bring that up because I'm sitting there watching Marvin win again this weekend and Tomac kind of struggle a little bit and just probably going into salvage mode. And yet still people I see are just like, yeah, good Tomac, like he's gone full Dungey and like I love him, oh, he's the best. And then when Dungey goes quote unquote full Dungey, everyone's like on his nuts about being just the worst guy ever and why is he not winning more races and the fastest guy should win the championship and wins should mean more and all this stuff. And it's just like, come on, like this point system's been in place for 30 plus years. Everyone knows the same rules going in. Like you can't just fault the guy for going for what he's there for, which is to win a championship. So just a little rant there at the end. Whether you agree with me or not, that's your own discretion. I just figured I'd say what I wanted to say before the time came to let that get away. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys enjoyed my commentary and all that business, and hope you guys enjoyed Budds Creek this weekend. I will try to be watching it. I don't know if I'll be able to catch much of it as the wedding that I'm going to is on Saturday, but I will try to. I got Muscan. I got, I'll just say, because these look better than AC, I got Savachi in the 250s. Love to hear you guys' picks and all that other business. But for Kellen here on Star Systems, I thank you for watching another video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.